substantiate, to establish by proof or competent evidence. Welcome back to Substantiate. I'm the host, William Glasser, bringing you hypothetical sports matchups every single week. Yes, welcome to Season 2, Episode number 1 of Substantiate. Today, I'm going to be previewing the NFC and AFC Championship Games. Then, I'm going to get into some NBA games coming up this weekend. So, let's start it off with the NFC Championship Game this weekend on Sunday at 3:05 p.m. on Fox. So this game is going to be the Tampa Buccaneers at the Green Bay Packers. These two teams have already played each other once this year. It was back in Week 6 when the Bucs won 38-10. So I'm going to start by previewing Green Bay's offense and the Bucs' defense. So, starting it off with the Packers offense, obviously their quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. He is 37 now, but is still having one of his best seasons of his career. It's crazy. This man, just like some other quarterbacks, like his opponent this weekend, they just never run out of gas in the tank, and it's truly amazing. But he has carried his team, the Green Bay Packers, to the number 1 seed in the NFC. Last week, they beat the Los Angeles Rams to advance to the NFC Championship Game. And his main target is Davante Adams. Davante Adams, the wide receiver. Davante Adams has 149 targets all year, and he was out for Week 5. Then Aaron Rodgers also has Allen Lazard. He has 49 total targets this year, a bit of a smaller factor in the Packers offense. But Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, along with their running back, Aaron Jones, and their tight end, Robert Tonyan, they have really been a very strong offense this year, putting up scores of 43, 42, 37, 30, just 10 when they played the Bucs back in Week 6. Then against the Texans the next week, 35, then 22, 34, 24, 31, 41, 30, 31, 24, 40, 35, 32. They've put up a lot of points this year, and this offense is truly one that is really stood out this year and even over the last few years. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers have not made it this far in a little while now, and here they are in the NFC Championship Game facing the Bucs, and as the favorites going into this game, as of Wednesday night, they are favored by 3.5 points. So the Packers have really put themselves in a great position now to win this game, make it to the Super Bowl, and face the winner of the Chiefs versus Bills game, which we'll get to afterwards. So now, if we take a look at the Bucs defense, their standout player last week was Devin White, coming up with an interception and one fumble recovery. He truly had an amazing game against Drew Brees, and last week, overall, the Bucs defense played really well. It was a little bit surprising, especially with a quarterback of Drew Brees, his background and stuff, being really a star quarterback across the league for a really long time. But the Bucs defense held them to 20 points, with 7 of those coming from a trick play involving Jameis Winston throwing a touchdown instead of Drew Brees. And that play, there was really no way that the Bucs could have read that really well. It was a really great play, in my opinion, one of the greatest plays of the playoffs so far. They've allowed such a few number of touchdowns this season in the passing game and in the running game as well, a little less. Right, the Bucs have a very good run defense and a decent pass defense, and they seem to clear up that any troubles with the pass defense last week. And I think they really have a good chance at stopping the Packers offense. But the only thing is, who is guarding Davante Adams so far? Whoever's guarding Davante Adams this week is going to have a really important part. I could see them potentially double teaming them, but it's a real concern that they didn't really have last week as much with the Saints. So now we flip to the other side of the ball. We have Green Bay's defense and Tampa's offense. So the Bucs offense, with their new quarterback this year, I think you might have heard of him, Tom Brady, obviously coming from New England, has plenty of playoff experience, and he really brought everyone down with him. He brought Antonio Brown, who had a brief tenure on the Patriots. He brought Rob Gronkowski, his longtime tight end, and along with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who were already on the Bucs, two amazing receivers. And they also have Leonard Fournette, a great running back, as well as some other names that you haven't heard as much of this year, but you have in past years, such as LaShawn McCoy. But overall, the Bucs have been so dominant this year. Right, they've scored 23 points, 31, 28, 38, 19, 38, 45, 25, 46, 24, 24 again, 26, 31, 47, 44, 31, 30, and there's only one exception to this, which was against the Saints back in Week 9, I believe, where they only scored 3 points. But they weren't really on top of their game that week, and there was no Antonio Brown then, and some other factors that may have played into that. But really, other than that one game, they haven't had another game where they scored less than 19 points. When they played the Packers, they beat them 38-10. So this just shows that they can handle the Packers' defense. Tom Brady also, he looked so perfect last weekend against the Saints, and if he can hold on to that, he was just, diming passes in there left and right, just perfect passes in the tiniest little holes. And I think that really, very similarly to Aaron Rodgers, I think they're both willing to do what it takes to win this game. And I think they both have what it takes to win this game. But at the end of the day, Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, he has a better number one receiver in Davante Adams, but Tom Brady has more stars surrounding him. He already has Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown and Rob Gronkowski and Leonard Fournette, and Aaron Rodgers has Davante Adams and Robert Tonyan and Aaron Jones. So he still has a couple stars, but it's just not the same as Tampa. And Tampa has also looked super hot the last 2 weeks, where instead we've seen Green Bay had a bye week. Okay, so they have a little bit of rest because they were the number one seed. So the Tampa offense, I think, can handle the Green Bay defense. The Green Bay defense not being anything too special. And so the last thing I want to talk about before I give you my picks for this game is just going to be the setting of Lambeau Field in Green Bay. So on another podcast with some former NFL players, they really mentioned that Lambeau Field, just the way it's designed and stuff, the fan noise really isn't as loud and as crazy there compared to some other stadiums. So I'm not too worried about the Bucs in that sense of Green Bay having a home field advantage. However, the cold is an interesting aspect, right? Although Tom Brady played for a long time up in New England, playing plenty of home playoff games where it was very cold. However, this last year playing in Tampa in Florida, very warm. But when we saw him in Washington just a couple of weeks ago, he was fine. Although it was a little bit warmer there than in Green Bay, okay. But I also don't think that the cold is going to play a big factor in Tom Brady's game. So now, my picks for this week, I am going with the Buccaneers. I don't think anyone's stopping Tom Brady. He is a man on a mission. He's just going to really just mess with Green Bay's defense. I could easily see them racking up upwards of 30 points in this game if they play their cards right, and I don't see them scoring less than 15 as well. So I am going with the Bucs on this game. However, if you look at the spread, which is currently 3.5 points, the Packers are favored, so add 3.5 points to the Bucs. So I have the Bucs winning this game outright, let alone the odds, which is minus 3.5 for the Packers. So subtract 3.5 points for them. So the Packers would have to win by 4 points or more in order to cover the spread. And I don't see them covering the spread. I don't see them winning. So, yes, I'm going with the Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. So now, the over-under on this game is 51.5. Now, this is really interesting because I just said before that I think that the Bucs offense could score anywhere really between a minimum of around 15 points, but a max of way high, I'd say upwards of 30. So, if it is that low-scoring game in the cold, then obviously you'd want to bet the under there. But I really don't think that's going to be the case. These are two of the best quarterbacks in recent history, and I think that it will be a high-scoring game. 51.5 points is really right about where I'd put it. Nonetheless, I'm going to have to go with the over on this one, because let's say the final score was 28-21. Well, that's already over. So no matter which way those points get distributed, I think you have a safe bet in the over in this one. So that was my picks for the Bucs at Green Bay game this weekend. I think the Bucs are going to march on down back to Tampa, their hometown, where they will be playing in the Super Bowl against the winner of the Chiefs versus Bills, which I'll get to in just 1 second. If they are to win this game, then they will be the first team in the NFL ever to be playing in the Super Bowl in their home stadium. So now moving on to the Bills at the Chiefs. Now this one is a very different matchup from the last in the sense of rather than having two quarterbacks that have been in the league upwards of a decade each, two quarterbacks that have an established history of greatness and legendary status in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen don't quite have it to that level yet. So obviously Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year, but Brady won the Super Bowl like 6 times. Okay, let's stay in perspective here. Although he's not going up against Brady this week, he's playing Josh Allen, who this was his 3rd year. He had really a breakout year. He played really fantastically this year. And in what it's coming down to in this game for me is how well does Patrick Mahomes play? Last week, he suffered from a concussion, and then during this week, he's been going through concussion protocol. And I read an article on The Athletic last night about all the concussion protocol he has to go through, and it's a lot. It doesn't involve him playing and practicing this week much. So even if he is able to play this weekend, he's going in without that much practice. And it's not like, say, he sprained his ankle and could still watch film and stuff, right? Like, this is a concussion that's literally messing with his head. So we don't know to what capacity he'll be able to play this week. And obviously we saw last week when he came out, the Chiefs threw an interception. They scored 0 points. Although they were able to hold off the Rams, it wasn't by that much. And if the Chiefs straight up don't have Mahomes, they are definitely losing this game because they may not even be able to put a point on the board. But then again, if Patrick Mahomes does play, he's still not playing up at his full potential. Will we see him running as much? Certainly not. And, will the Chiefs' offensive line be able to hold them? I don't know. So when we look at this and we see Patrick Mahomes going up against the Bills' defense, the Bills' defense, however, has a stronger passing game and a bit of a weaker rushing game. Maybe it's not as bad as it looks. Maybe Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be able to navigate his way through the Bills' defense and carry the team via the rush, or maybe they won't. Maybe they'll have a really hard time. Which brings us over to the other side of the ball with the Chiefs' defense and the Bills' offense. So one thing that I've really liked from Josh Allen over these last few weeks was he's really proved that he's a very versatile quarterback. He can run, he can pass, he can throw the long ball. He can do everything, really. We saw a play a few weeks ago in the wild card round where he tucked the ball and ran. Right, so he wasn't just holding it out, waiting for a pass. He tucked the ball and ran towards the line of scrimmage. A player on the Colts wraps around his legs, but Josh Allen untucks the ball and flips it into the end zone for a touchdown. Now, this was really a crazy play. He had an extremely short amount of time to make that decision, pull it up and throw it, and if that went wrong, that could have been a fumble. That could have been a fumble recovered by the Colts, which could have changed the outcome of that game. But Josh Allen has some great players surrounding him, Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, as well as their running back, Devin Singletary, and I don't think that's really going to be a problem for them. I don't think that the Chiefs' defense will be a big enough of a problem for them, right? The Bills faced plenty of tough defenses in the Colts and the Ravens in the last 2 weeks, and I don't see any sign of them slowing down in this one. I see them really, really just having another outstanding game. Oh, and in the Chiefs' offense, I forgot to mention Travis Kelce, an outstanding tight end. So if Mahomes is even able to play, and even if he's not at 100%, Kelce could just catch it, and same with Tyreek Hill, the wide receiver, although Tyreek Hill's a lot smaller. Obviously, him being a wide receiver, not a tight end, but the Chiefs receivers are still good enough that, right, with a Mahomes that's not at 100%, so long as he gets the ball in the air, they should be fine. Now, the only thing you have to worry about, again, is the Bills' passing defense. You don't want them cutting off any passes and getting any interceptions. So with this, I have to go with the Bills to win this game, right? The Bills, they just seem to have that, just like the Bucs, their offense is on a roll. They show no signs of slowing down. They just seem like the kind of team that can go into Kansas City and come out the champions of the AFC. But now if we look at the betting lines, right now Kansas City is favored by 1.5 points. So another really close one. And in this one, again, I'm going to have to go with Buffalo. 1.5 Like, that's just extremely close, and I think that what this doesn't reflect as much is that even if Mahomes is in, he won't be at 100%. And with the Bills' passing defense, he's going to need Kelsey and Hill to step up, make some outstanding catches, which they're very well capable of. It's just, will they or won't they? And going up against a defense like the Bills, it won't be easy. So we're going to see Clyde Edwards-Helaire doing a lot of work on the offense. And in this one, the over-under is 54 points. Now, I have to go with the under on that because, like I mentioned, right, overall, the Chiefs' score is going to be lower than if Mahomes was at 100%, whether Mahomes winds up playing or not. So I think that that line doesn't necessarily reflect that as much. I don't see Kansas City scoring more than 24-ish points, I'd say. And I see them scoring a minimum of really just field goals, so maybe like 6. And between that, again, like Kansas City's defense is still a thing. It's still there. So it's not like Buffalo's just going to walk through, right? Josh Allen is still going to need to work. And I think that they will still be able to march through. And I think that 54 points is going to be way over where this game is going. So again, all of those odds in both games were as of Wednesday night this week. In summary, I'm taking both underdogs to win outright. The spread in the Tampa-Green Bay game is 2.5. I take Tampa with that 2.5 as well. And same with Buffalo's 1.5. And with Tampa and Green Bay, I say over 51, and Buffalo and KC under 54. So now, just talking about the NBA in general, just looking at some games to keep an eye on this weekend, some games that will be really fun and some interesting matchups. So on Saturday, the 23rd, there is the Lakers playing in Chicago at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And that one, I think the Lakers will still come out and win. They had a sloppy loss against the Warriors, where they really just didn't have their heads in the game. But that'll definitely be an interesting one. The Bulls still have an up-and-coming team. Their record as of, again, Wednesday night being 6-8. And then there is the Sixers playing in Detroit, and that one, again, if the Sixers don't win that, then that would be pretty crazy. The Sixers are still a good team, Joel Embiid, and despite the criticism, Ben Simmons is still a decent player. Obviously, he had been rumored to potentially be part of a deal that never wound up happening with James Harden and the Rockets. And then there is the Miami Heat playing in Brooklyn against the Nets. And Kyrie Irving is supposed to be back by then. In fact, I think he's supposed to be back by their game on Wednesday night against the Cavaliers. So we'll see how well he can wind up meshing with James Harden and Kevin Durant with that big trade. And we've seen Durant and we've seen Durant and Harden work pretty well, just like old times back in Oklahoma. And ultimately, though, I think the Nets will still come out on top. And then the Pelicans in Minnesota playing the Timberwolves. I think the Pelicans have a real good shot at winning this one. They have not played perfectly this year, but ultimately Zion is an up-and-coming star going up against a team that is currently 3-9. I think that the Pelicans definitely have a very good chance at beating the Timberwolves, despite their record only being 5-8. But ultimately, they have enough talent, and I think they can pull through. And then the next game is Houston Rockets at Dallas Mavericks. The Rockets, there's no way they win this game, right? Like, their team is basically empty right now. Dallas has Luka Doncic. They have Kristaps Porzingis, right? There's no way that they don't wind up winning this one over the Rockets, who just lately, since they traded Harden, and even before they traded Harden, just haven't been good. So then Warriors at Jazz. This one is interesting. The Jazz are 10-4. The Warriors are 7-6. And despite the fact that the Warriors win over the Lakers, that wasn't the Lakers at their full potential. They just really played poorly. I think that they can still have a decent chance at winning this game against the Jazz. ESPN matchup predictor has the Warriors with a 41.9% chance of winning this game. But honestly, like Stephen Curry and Donovan Mitchell, I think that they each have very high skill, and I think that they each, they're going to put a ton of points on the board. And James Wiseman, this guy's been pretty incredible lately, averaging 6 rebounds a game, and just performing some really highlight plays on offense. He's got a lot of size, the center, and we'll see how he plays up against Rudy Gobert, who's averaging 13.6 rebounds per game, 10.1 defensive rebounds per game, and 3.6 offensive rebounds per game. In this game, Stephen Curry, I think that he can outplay Donovan Mitchell and James Wiseman. It all depends on Rudy Gobert's defense. Rudy Gobert, if he is really out of it on Saturday night, then James Wiseman will really be able to just get in there and score. James Wiseman is currently averaging 10.7 points per game, but if Rudy plays sloppy, then James Wiseman will score more. But if Rudy Gobert plays his full-out defense, I think he could hold Wiseman to around 6 points maybe. Now, in this one, that's probably going to be one of the best games to watch this weekend. That is on Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. In that one, I'm going to give it to the Warriors. I think that Stephen Curry just has what it takes to win the game, and I definitely I could see either team winning this, but despite ESPN's matchup predictor, I'm going with the Warriors. Again, it is too early for the odds to be posted on these games, so otherwise I would have made predictions with the spread, but again, I'm recording this on Wednesday night. The game is on Saturday. They don't post it yet. Anyway, the last game on Saturday night is going to be the Nuggets in Phoenix playing the Suns. And the Suns have played well this season. They are 7-5. The Nuggets are 7-7. Devin Booker and Chris Paul coming up against Denver, who is 7-7. Oh, and don't forget about DeAndre Ayton. Nikola Jokic leads the Nuggets in points per game with 25.1. He leads them in rebounds per game, 11.4. And he also leads them in assists per game with 10. Also, he's averaging 4 turnovers per game in his 35-minute average. So he's literally averaging a triple-double. That is some crazy stuff coming from Nikola Jokic, but he's going to need some more help surrounding him in this one. And going up against a powerhouse like Phoenix has the capability of when they're really playing well. And Denver, according to ESPN Matchup Predictor, has a 40.9% chance of winning, and that means that they have a 59.1% chance of losing. So I am going with Phoenix to win this game. Alright, so now moving on to Sunday. There are a total of 8 games on Sunday. Starting it off with Raptors at Pacers. This game is at 1 p.m. on NBA TV. The Raptors, who have utterly been playing terribly, going up against the Pacers, and the Pacers are on their home floor. They are 8-5 as opposed to the Raptors 5-8, and ESPN Matchup Predictor actually has Toronto with a 72.8% chance of winning. I'm actually not too sure where that is coming from. And although the Pacers acquired Karis LeVert from the Nets, he's still currently out. And I don't know, this game could be a close one with the Raptors just... they still got stuff to prove. Kyle Lowry, can he carry the team? Fred VanVleet, can Pascal Siakam, can they score more points than the Pacers? Right, that's what the game ultimately comes down to. And ESPN Matchup Predictor gives Toronto a 72.8% chance of winning this. So you never know what's actually going to happen here. I could see this game going either way here, but I'm going to go with ESPN and say the Raptors. Next game is the Thunder in LA, but they're playing the Clippers. This game's at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. This game's going to the Clippers. ESPN gives them an 88.6% chance of winning. All right, there's just no way that Oklahoma City is just going to come out on top of the Clippers, led by Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. No, that's not happening. Lou Williams, as of Wednesday night again, is currently day-to-day. Even if he doesn't play in that game, I think they'll be fine and will be able to take care of Oklahoma City. OKC is currently 6-7, the Clippers 10-4. But again, ESPN, when you have a 90% chance of winning, gonna go with the Clippers. Next game is Charlotte in Orlando. This game's going to Charlotte. No questions asked. Charlotte, with LaMelo Ball, they have to. LaMelo's been playing so spectacularly lately alongside his teammates. In Orlando, he hasn't. Gordon Hayward in Charlotte, all of this, right? They've just really been playing well as of late. ESPN gives them a 64.8% chance of winning, and in Orlando, just 35.2%. And just in general, Charlotte, they've been playing a little bit better than their record, I'd say, as of late. They lost to the Raptors by 3. They lost to the Mavericks, who are a good team, by 11. They beat the Knicks, who of lately have not been playing their usual terrible. They've been playing fairly decent. They beat the Knicks by 21. They beat the Hawks, another decent team so far this year, by 8. And as well as beating them again by another game where they won by 8 earlier in the season. And I'm not going to go through every single game, but they've been playing a bit better than their record, getting unlucky a few times, since that game is going to Charlotte. The fourth game is Cavaliers at Celtics. The Cavs, who are 6-7, recently acquired Jared Allen from the Nets, an excellent big man. I think he'll be a great impact on this team. This game is at 7 p.m. Eastern Time in Boston. ESPN gives Boston an 85.9% chance of winning this. And I'm not sure that I would put it up at 85%, but I'd definitely say that Boston is definitely likely to win this game. And Kemba Walker and Jason Tatum and Taco Fall, you hit a 3 a few nights ago. That was crazy. And this game is going to the Celtics, no questions asked. All right, next up is the Wizards at the Spurs, 7 p.m. Eastern Time in San Antonio. This game is going to the Spurs. The Wizards are 3-8, despite having Russell Westbrook. It just isn't enough. So interestingly enough, however, ESPN gives Washington a 48.3% chance of winning this game. So they have it pretty even. If we look at the stats, Bradley Beal leads Washington with an average of 34.9 points per game. And DeMar DeRozan with just 20.7 for San Antonio. In rebounds, Thomas Bryant of Washington averages 6.1. And DeJounte Murray of San Antonio, he averages 7.4 rebounds per game. And so Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook will just be ones to keep an eye on in this one. It looks like Moritz Wagner it will be out in this one. It's looking like as of now. And this one, this is going to be a tough one. It's in San Antonio. I believe they are having fans, I think. And I think this game is going to San Antonio. That 51.7%, I think, is going to fall in their favor on Sunday night. Going on to the fifth game on Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time is the Atlanta Hawks at the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks are 9-5. They've playing pretty dominantly. For Atlanta, Trae Young is averaging 22.9 points per game. Compared to Giannis's 27.2 over in Milwaukee. And Milwaukee's also got Chris Middleton. On Atlanta, Trae Young and Avery Bradley and Bogdan Bogdanovic, right? They've got Rajon Rondo as well. So even though the Hawks are by no means a bad team, however, I still believe that this game is going to the Bucks. ESPN gives them a 90.5% chance of winning. Again, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that 90%. I'd go maybe 80% or 75, but not all the way up to 90. Regardless, Bucks coming out on top in that one. 2 games left. It is the Sacramento Kings in Memphis playing against the Grizzlies. Now, the Grizzlies have been playing well. Memphis is 7-6, Sacramento 5-9. This game's at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's get straight to it. ESPN gives Memphis a 65.8% chance of winning, and the Kings just 34.2%. So, obviously, ESPN isn't always right, but in this one, Sacramento is still a young team, and I just don't think that they have enough to beat Memphis. Hassan Whiteside is currently day-to-day for Sacramento, and it's just not looking too great for the Kings in that matchup. Right, last but not least, the Knicks in Portland playing against the Trailblazers. The Knicks, who I mentioned before, had been playing better than their usual hot trash this year. They are 7-8, playing at Portland, who is 8-6. Portland is led by Damian Lillard, who is averaging 28.1 points per game. Enes Kanter is averaging 9.3 rebounds per game. And Damian Lillard is averaging 6.7 assists per game. But then when you come over to the Knicks, Julius Randle standing out in all three categories, averaging 22.8 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists. That is truly amazing how he has led the Knicks this year out of terrible and into mediocrity. Ultimately, though, ESPN gives the Knicks just under 20% chance of winning this game. And again, I would have to give them higher than 20%. I would give them maybe 35% chance of winning it. This year, the Knicks have beat the Celtics 105-75, right? That's a 30-point game. And the Celtics aren't a bad team. They just lost to the Cavs by just a small 3 points. They lost to the Nets by just 7 points. Right, these are all close games against most of them good teams. But at the end of the day, Portland's still Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. I think that they'll still be able to carry out on top of the Knicks. And that ends all of the NBA games coming up this weekend. Let me know what you thought of my predictions. You can let me know in the form of a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts, or comment on one of our Instagram posts, or retweet us with your thoughts, or comment on one of our Facebook posts, and just let us know what you're thinking about these picks. Let me know which games you're most excited to watch in the NFL this weekend, with the Packers and Bucks and the Bills and Chiefs. Some really exciting games coming up this weekend in both sports. We'll come back at you next Wednesday with, talking a little bit about the football games that happened this weekend. Maybe talk a little basketball, maybe talk a little baseball. And I've got a guest that I'm trying to line up to maybe talk some college sports coming up. And we'll see how that goes. But, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Substantiate. The best way to help support the show is to, number 1, tell your friends about Substantiate. That is the number 1 way to support us. The second way is to leave us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. Number 3, follow us at substantiatepod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Hello, I'm Anthony.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
And we're hosts of Capes on the Couch, the podcast where comics get counseling.
Superheroes don't always get to go home happy. That's where we come in.
We offer psychiatric and mental health analysis of comic book characters.
So check us out at capesonthecouch.live and across all social media platforms at Capes on the Couch.